Welcome to the Alyosha Society, friends, where we're pursuing truth, beauty, and goodness through great literature. My name is Bruce Etter. I'm the founder of the Alyosha Society, and I am convinced that our children need to be reading great books. But I am equally convinced that we're not showing them how to read these books. We're not teaching them how to read for understanding and enjoyment. We're not giving them the tools that they need. And then often they end up going to the university, and some professor teaching critical theory is able to basically undo everything that we worked for years to accomplish. So in this video, I want to talk about very, very, very small snippet of what I do in this course, this great books course. I call it the literary toolbox. And so we use what is commonly called the historical biographical approach to reading, understanding, and enjoying literature, the historical biographical approach. And I want to show you what the toolbox looks like, because these are the tools that I want to give your students as they read and understand and hopefully enjoy literature. So let me just briefly share those with you. The literary toolbox. So the first thing I want to point out here is historical context. So in this course, we walk through how to discern the historical context, but not only that, we also include things like cultural context, philosophical context, theological context. So under historical context, I'm pretty much talking about the culture, the times, the common ways of thinking that were going on when this author was writing this book. That's going to give us some insight as to why he or she wrote what she wrote. So I spend a considerable amount of time on intro work before we even get to the book itself. Next, biographical context. So I want to dig into the life of the author. Authors cannot help but write about themselves. They write about what they know. They write based on their own experience. And the more we know about the author, I think the more we're going to understand the book. So historical context, biographical context, and then we use what I call genre questions. So we might be reading historical fiction, maybe a work of poetry, throw in a little bit of satire. Oh, look at that. Let's do an allegory. Hey, how about even some political philosophy? The whole point of the course is to do as many different genres as possible. So we have a set of questions that goes along with each genre. So when they're reading that particular type of novel, they have this tool, they have questions, things to look for as they're reading. And if they can process that and work through it, I think it'll help them understand and enjoy the work a lot more. You're not really going to be looking at the same set of questions for a satire that you might be looking at in a Gothic novel or a historical fiction. So we have the genre questions for each work. Then, get my video out of the way, we look at what I call literary devices. What are the literary, actually, I'm going to stick myself way over here. What are the literary devices? Now, the literary devices are interesting because those are the tools that the author himself or herself is using. So we want to look at the tools that the author is using and to better understand that person's craft. And the literary devices could be a mountain of things. How does the author use colors? You know, Dostoevsky does this in Crime and Punishment. How does the author use symbols, motifs, bridges, trees? With Flannery O'Connor, you have the tree line, you have the sun, you have all these different things that tend to represent certain things in her story. So that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work, but it's well worth it and it's enjoyable. So historical context, biographical context, we have a set of genre questions for each work. Lots of fun talking about literary devices. And then we talk about the 5 elements of the story arc or the plot trajectory. Authors tend to do this, don't they? They tend to start with an exposition. They tend to give us some rising action where there's a problem, that involves some sort of tension, a climactic moment, sort of the top of the mountain, that is followed then by falling action and then the resolution. Kind of just like a, just like a Mozart sonata sort of. And so we look at the story arc and we talk about why is that? Why is it that Christian, non-Christian, doesn't really matter, authors of all different ages have tended to write stories? We talk a little bit about how, well, the elements of a plot are basically a picture of the gospel. Starting out in the garden, big problem, sin, climactic moment, birth, life, death, resurrection of Jesus Christ and his ascension, and falling action and resolution with the marriage supper of the Lamb. So I believe it's because the gospel is the ultimate story, capital S. So all good stories are going to kind of tend to follow that plot trajectory. So this is what we do in the course. I want your students, they are free to come to me with an empty toolbox, and I want to fill it. And this is just a little snippet of some of the main tools that we're going to put in the literary toolbox. I look forward to seeing you in the course. Shoot me an email if you have any questions about it at all. Bruce@AlyoshaSociety.com. God bless.